What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the Pika Pika Papa, and as promised, after the State of the Hobby video where we looked at all these amazing generations, we looked at Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon and XY and Scarlet and Violet, and we really did a deep dive into not only how they've been moving month over month, but how they've been moving it over time and how the whole market has been going. So it was a ton of fun, but what that left me with was a little bit of a gap. So we talked about how hot Sword and Shield had been. We talked about how hot Scarlet and Violet has been, but we kind of glossed over the XY and Sun and Moon era. And I thought what would be interesting is some of this information that we really learned when we did that State of the Hobby video. So what you see before you right now is the exact same graph and the exact same slide that we showed on Monday. So what we did on Monday was we took a look at the Sword and Shield, Sun and Moon, and XY era and how the booster box prices and the top 20 singles prices had changed over the last 2 years. So what you see before you right now is what it would have cost you if you were to buy one of every booster box from each of those generations, and then one of the top 20 singles cards from every single set that had a booster box from those same generations, right? So you had 12 booster boxes in each of those generations, top 20 cards from each, 240 total cards. The aggregate value is represented right here. Now, you might be looking at this and going, oh my God, how crazy is that? Like, I can't believe the prices were that low. And one of the reasons you'd be saying that is because this is the world we live in today. This is how much the prices have changed over the last 2 years. It is incredible. It is wild. I went deep into it on the State of the Hobby video, so I'm not going to dive deep into it again today. But what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at where we saw some of the biggest gains, because that was some of my big takeaways, right? So take a look at here. So from the booster box perspective, the group that had the lowest 12 booster box combined prices in September of 2023 was Sword and Shield. Now remember, Sword and Shield, unlike Scarlet and Violet, like Sword and Shield, we had a lot of the booster boxes which were still available at the Pokemon Center even after Crown Zenith had come out, right? Like even after the Sword and Shield generation was quote unquote technically over, you could still buy these at MSRP on the Pokemon Center. If you weren't around back then, you might be thinking that's blasphemy, but I promise you that was how things operated back then. Now, good luck even getting them on launch day with Pokemon Center and the queues and all of that. Don't get me started. But the big takeaway for me in the booster box space was, look at the booster box, which started off with the lowest price, was the Sword and Shield era, right? The booster box price for all 12 of them would have cost you $2,058 versus Sun and Moon, right, at over $7,000. And then XY was almost $12,000. But look at the gains. Look at over here, which gave you the biggest gains. The one that started off at the lowest price point gave us the biggest gains at 291%, because those same 12 booster boxes from the Sword and Shield era would now cost you $8,037. Now, Sun and Moon is nothing to shake a fist at. You're up 236%. But again, the overall percentage, the gap between a 236% gain and an almost 300% gain, like, is huge. So that was one of the big takeaways that I had. And the other thing was this too. We saw the same pattern happen in the singles card space, right? We saw that the XY era was undervalued by a mile 2 years ago. I want you to understand that. Look, the top 20 singles card from every single set that had a booster box in the XY era would have cost you a measly $4,417 compared to Sword and Shield, which again, the newness of Sword and Shield, I get it. It had alt arts and trainer galleries, and I get it that a lot of people came back into the hobby because of the pandemic and, you know, all of this, the stuff that happened in around 2020, 2021. It doesn't matter. The XY era was far undervalued. So what did we see? We saw that the XY era gave us the biggest returns in the single card space. So what this video today is going to be about is we're going to be looking at the top 20 singles card segment, which is undervalued compared to its peers. And we're going to look at some individual cards that maybe have a little bit of room to run. And unsurprisingly, still today, even with that healthy 194% gain over the last 2 years, the aggregate value of those top 20 singles cards from the XY era is still lower than Sword and Shield, which is mind-blowing to me. It's still lower than Sun and Moon by a mile, right? So I'm going to be talking about some XY cards. Now, if you look at the price graphs that I share throughout the course of the month, you know that really over the last, say, 18, 19, 20 months even, the XY era has been growing, but it's been growing at a relatively reasonable rate versus some of these other generations where we see the top 20 singles cards spike 20% in one month and then down 10% the next month. And we see these wild swings up and then drops down on the back end. The XY era has just been slowly, steadily chugging along, appreciating in value, which in terms of my likes That's my favorite thing. I don't like the sharp ups. I don't like the aggressive downs. I love the way we've seen XY era grow. So what we're going to do today is we're going to look at some of the cards in the XY space that I still think have a little bit of juice in the tank. Now, before I get into the exact cards, this is the time for me to give my little pause and say, hey, if you enjoy this type of data analysis and kind of like more of the why behind the what, we do this all the time on the channel. So if you're having fun along the way and if you enjoy the content, hit a subscribe button or give us a thumbs up. Those two small things go a very long way in helping my small channel out, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it. So with that out of the way, let's start looking at some of these cards, and I'm going to tell you right now, none of these cards are going to be quote unquote cheap. So if you know me, if you follow this channel, I am a big believer that spending your money on quality cards from awesome sets with big name Pokemon is going to serve you very well in the long run. So the first card that we're talking about right here checks in at a hefty $135. However, I don't care. I still think this card has juice in the tank. I love everything about it. The artwork is absolutely phenomenal. It comes from the Generations Radiant collection, which, remember, Generations was an anniversary set that came out in 2016. And guess what we have on the horizon next year, right? We're going to have the 30th anniversary in 2026. So I think that having a new anniversary set is going to give some organic growth and love to some of these older anniversary sets. So I love that about this card. The other thing that I like is if you look at this 6-month price graph, a lot of its gains came much earlier in the year. Over the last 6 months, this card is up 10%. And 10% over 6 months isn't anything, you know, to shake a fist at. That's not a horrible gain. But in the Pokemon space, over the last 6 months, 10% up is like nothing. It is absolute trash. So what I love about this card is I love the set that it comes from. I love the artwork. You got Sylveon as the named Pokemon. You got Eevee chilling in the background. You're only paying a 10% premium versus where it was 6 months ago. You throw in the halo effect of a possible another anniversary set coming in 2026. And even though this card comes in at $135, I think that is $135 well spent. So I think this card is absolutely worthy of being on the list. Now, next card that we're going to look at right here. So Phantom Forces. Phantom Forces is obviously one of the biggest sets from the XY era, right? You got Ancient Origins, you got Flashfire, and you got Phantom Forces. Like, those are the big three. But Gengar is the main Pokemon in Phantom Forces, and if you were to look at the most expensive Gengar cards, this ranks number 4 or 5 in the Phantom Forces list. But again, what I really like about this card is you see some price stability over the last, say, 2.5 months. Now, it did jump from a $35 card to a $50-something card, you know, right about 3 months ago. You see it hit that jump, but then it started to flatten out. I don't care. I don't care that it had that upswing. What I care about is it's been able to maintain that price point. If you have seen this card in person, it is an absolute stunner. And the other thing that I think is really cool, unless I'm missing something, from what I understand, Phantasmal Forces is not going to have, or excuse me, Phantasmal Flames is not going to have Gengar in it, which means that there is going to be a set further on down in this mega series that is going to have Gengar, and Gengar is not going to be fighting for headline space with Charizard. Gengar is going to be the big dog, and we see time and time again when we have a big name Pokemon like a Charizard or a Gengar or a Umbreon or anything like that, which is headlining an awesome set, it organically pulls up a lot of the older cards of that same character. So the fact that it's coming from the XY era, which according to me, compared to its peers, is still a little undervalued, right? The fact that it's coming from one of the biggest sets, the fact that we have that opportunity for a new Gengar set to come out, which could pull this card up. For all of those reasons, even though it's at $57, I absolutely love this card. Next one on the list right here. So this is the Mega Venusaur EX, okay? So this is from the XY Evolution set. Now, in terms of printing, we know we talk at times about how the XY era was different and the print runs were a little bit low. There was no shortage of XY Evolutions, okay? That set was printed and printed and printed, and you could have found it on the shelves for a very long time. But again, to me, that is not as important as the quality of the card. The artwork of this card is absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, Venusaur has a ton. I mean, Venusaur is one of the most popular Pokemon of all time. There's no way to argue against it. And you throw in this amazing artwork, you come to the fact that it's at $50 right now. Like, if you look at some of the other Venusaur cards, there are a lot of Venusaur cards that are over $50 right now that aren't nearly as awesome as this one is. So you have the XY Evolutions, which is a really popular, really fun set. You're going to see another card from that set featured on later on in this list. So for all of those reasons, I think at $50, this card is a very interesting opportunity. I think there are going to be multiple cards in time in the XY Evolution set that are going to be over that $100 price point, and I actually think this is going to be one of them. So the next one that I'm going to talk about right here is from Breakpoint. And I talk about how, and I've done this at nauseum already, so I won't beat it up again, but how sometimes new cards can go ahead and help pull old cards up. Well, you got the Ho-Oh right here, and I love the artwork on this one. This is a really, really cool artwork card. Over the last 3 months, it's only, quote unquote, only, I know it's crazy to say that, only up 24% over the last 3 months, but it's coming in at sub $40. It's coming at 39 bucks right now. Obviously, we all know Destined Rivals has a really cool Ho-Oh card in it. So I think that that's going to lead to some, again, just some organic growth from some of the older ones. Breakpoint is performing really, really well from a sealed price perspective. There's just a lot of intangibles that I think, combined with the artwork, combined with the big name Pokemon, that I think this card still has some juice in the tank to get way up over that $40 price point that it's currently at right now. Next one on this list, speaking of some of the most popular Pokemon out there, Zapdos, without question, is one of the most popular Pokemon. Now, think about 151, and I haven't checked the price in about a week, but last I saw, the Zapdos card from the 151 in Scarlet and Violet was the second most expensive card behind Charizard. Now, the thing to consider about that is it's got legendary birds on it. It's not just Zapdos, but Zapdos is a commanding Pokemon in the world of collecting and investing. Matter of fact, if you watch our grading report video that we do every month where we pull the actual data from PSA, we see the most graded cards, we see the most graded sets, like we see the most graded characters. And you know who's always on that list? Zapdos. That just tells you that the broader market has a lot of love affair with this awesome Pokemon. Now, this is a little bit of an interesting situation because, as you can see, there was recently a buyout, okay? You see that bright blue line represents price movement, that light blue bar graph that go ahead and represents the number of sales on TCG Player, and you can see the price shot up when the light blue bar graph shot up, so somebody probably went on there and bought all of these cards out. But even with that, what I like to see on the back end is price stability. A lot of times we'll see the price shoot up with a volume of purchases and then it drops on the back end. This one has held its water. And again, it's coming from the Generations set. I know it's not the Radiant collection, but still coming from the Anniversary set in Generations, one of the most popular Pokemon. The artwork is really, really cool. I think this card is very worthy of being on the list, and I'm super excited to have it on here. Next one that we're talking about right here. Okay, so this is the Mega Charizard, again from XY Evolutions. Now, this card 2 years ago, you could have bought it in a PSA 10 holder for basically the same price that you're paying for it raw white right now. But guess what? None of us have a time machine. We can't go back. But the reality of the market is right now, this is the chase card from that XY Evolution set, okay? It is a Charizard card. It is from, now it's almost 4 generations old, right? And it is coming in at sub $150. I have said this time and time and time again. When you have a big set and it's headlined by a Charizard, you can do far worse than putting your money into that card. Like it is really hard to bet against the Charizard as far as I'm concerned. So we've seen it with 151. Do you remember when we saw the Charizard card drop below $200 and we kept saying on this channel, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this is going to be a very, very expensive card someday. This is one of the ones that I don't think will pop like the 151 card here has of late. I think all of these cards, matter of fact, will have to grow a little bit slower over time, which is fine by me. But I do think in time, this card is going to have a much higher price point than 150 bucks. I think the XY Evolution set as a whole has a bunch of really cool Pokemon in it. I think it's going to drive a lot of demand, and I think people are going to be very interested in it for a long time to come. And when you put all of those factors together, it makes me a big believer that the chase card of that set's going to do really well. So this Charizard's on the list, and I'm super pumped to have it on there. The final card that we're going to talk about today is one that is the cheapest on the list, and I love this card. So this is the Dragonite from Roaring Skies, and the thing that I like about it is it reminds me of a lot of the Trainer Gallery cards that we're seeing in the Sword and Shield era that are popping off in price, okay? And this is probably the biggest flyer on the entire list. But again, look at it. Over the last year, it's up 358%. I mean, this was a $2 and something cent card a year ago, and now it is all the way up knocking on the door of $12. But I still think, believe it or not, I still think it has room to run. Now, you want to be careful when you're buying this card. There was a deck version, right, which came in a pre-built deck that you could buy. You want to make sure you get this one. This is the one that you actually pulled from packs. This is the Holo Rare variant. But Dragonite's an awesome Pokemon. It's super popular. We see a lot of Dragonite cards that have really, really high price points associated with it. I think as some of the other XY cards start to reach these really lofty prices, people are going to be looking for cool artwork of popular Pokemon, you know, from that generation. And I think this is going to be one of the cards that people are going to flock to. Again, I love the artwork. It's super cool. Make sure if you're going to go out and shop for it, you get the right one. And it's just going to be interesting to watch in the long run. Again, this is probably the one from the list that has the biggest risk to it. Again, you're spending $12, so not a big financial risk. But in terms of price appreciation, I think the other ones, you know, will probably have a little bit more solidity to it. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But no matter what, this was a ton of fun. Believe it or not, I don't know how long you've been watching this channel for. But about a year and a half ago, I used to do an X, Y, and a sun and moon breakdown every single month. However, I stopped doing it because nobody watched it. Now that the market has shifted, if you are interested in more X, Y, or sun and moon content, let me know. Obviously, I have all the data points, so I'm happy to pull it together, but it's all about you guys. So if you want it, let me know. If you think it's trash, you can tell me that too. You're not going to hurt my feelings. But most of all, hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you had fun. If you did, hit the subscribe button or give us a thumbs up, and you have an epic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon. See you, everybody. Bye.